thanks so much for joining me. It's a pretty good turnout, so I really appreciate it. I get really geeked out and really excited about having the opportunity to relive this whole adventure that I did by looking at these pictures in really big form. So you guys get to feast your eyes on it. So yeah, a little bit about myself. My name is Derek Sokoloski. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I grew up in a little small town called Hackettstown in the northwestern part of the state, kind of surrounded by the Appalachian Ridge and Valley system that goes through the state. So even as a little kid, I used to run up on the ridges, all private land, so it was definitely trespassing, but running around up in the forested hills of New Jersey, and it kind of got me this like drive for exploring mountainous terrain as a little kid, but then I'm also incredibly goal-oriented. So once I found out about highpointing, I was like, I'm all in. So basically, kind of how it all went for me was I went to college at Virginia Tech, and partway through I was a member of the outdoor club at Virginia Tech, and I was a trip leader. And one of the other trip leaders was this dude, Lubos Brieda from Slovakia. And he was like, hey Derek, I'm all excited, I got this new plan of what I'm gonna get done in the US. I was like, what do you got, man? He's like, it's called highpointing. It's going to the highest point in all 50 states. And I thought about it, and I was like, actually, I've already done 3. I was like, well, 47 more, let's do it. So that's pretty much how I got into it. In 2004, I knowingly started, but October 18th is when I look back at my notes, is roughly when I did my first one. So the Highpointing Club, which is a nonprofit, they keep a running tally and list of all of the completers. It's it's an honor system, so I hope there's no one that's joking around saying that they completed and didn't. But at least the last I had checked, so I was completer number 256 with the Highpointing Club. The last I had seen, they were in like the 340s or so in the last year with completers. So surprisingly, not as many. When I completed, I thought there was over 1,000 people that had done this, but not so much. And so I pretty much did it from 03 to 2014, but knowingly for 10 years. And this is just kind of like a tracking of, and the background, this is me on the top of Rainier. This is up in the Wind River Range in Wyoming. But yeah, you can kind of see the rundown. I had a little pile in 05 and 06 where I did a bunch. That's a lot of the drive-up hikes, or the drive-up high points. And so I kind of did a quick look, and roughly there are like 32 of the high points that you can do just driving your car up to a parking lot and just like walk to the point. So I ended up doing 22 of those, and then in the cases of where there was like a cool hike or a cool backpack that I could do, I opted to do the harder of the options. So that's why I say backpacking and beyond, I did 11 of them. Day hikes were 17, and some of both of those you could actually have done a drive up. So, and here's the list. So it's hard to tell, but there are 5 bolded. We've got Mount Hood in Oregon, Rainier, Granite in Montana, Gannett in Wyoming, and then Denali in Alaska. I have them bolded because those are the 5 out of the 50 that require high-level mountaineering or more technical mountain climbing skills. Then all the other ones are pretty much like strenuous hikes. They kind of cap out, if you're familiar with the classes of hiking, like class 1, 2, 3 is rock scrambling, 4 is more glacier travel and really steep rock, and then 5 is more technical rock climbing. Pretty much besides these 5, all the rest of them are class 3 or less. You can do different routes to make things spicy, but mostly they're more easy hikes. As a part of it, I'm a huge map nerd, so I have this 4x3 foot map on my wall that you can see all the red lines. Basically all the red lines all across the US is everywhere I've driven. And as I was going, if you can kind of see the little stars, when I was completing the high points, I was like all excited. I'm like, I got another star, and pop it up there, and it's like, Hawaii got cut off, but that's like down here. But yeah, I've covered a lot of ground. The US is amazing. And I will say one of the things that is probably my favorite about this whole adventure is the fact that I got to go to all these unique parts of states that I truly No offense, northeastern Mississippi, but I'm never going to go back. But I'm glad I got to go, and I always say that as a disclaimer too, is that, like a lot of people pass up the Great Plains states, or a lot of people pass up parts of the South. There is beauty in every single corner of this country and everywhere on the planet too. So you could be in flat as a pancake Delaware and be like, man, this is gorgeous in its own way. So I'm attracted to mountains, but there's cool stuff everywhere. So I'm going to try to go through the less exciting ones, that are kind of like, they're pretty pictures, to get to the more exciting mountainous photos later on in the PowerPoint. So I'll zip through, and again, you won't offend me if you get bored, you want to boogie, or you have to go to the bathroom or whatever, just go for it. You'll also see I'm not very tech savvy, so you'll see a very distinct time in, I think it was 2007 when I finally got a digital camera. This first part was all film cameras, so some of the pictures are pretty blurry. So, whatever, point and click. But, so Mount Rogers, if you ever go there, it's right by the border of Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, where they all come together. There's wild ponies that live up at the top. I did a backpacking trip for this hike, and it was just, look at the colors, it was freaking gorgeous. Claimant's Dome, Smoky Mountains. I did a backpacking trip with a buddy of mine in spring break in 2004, and this was the second peak that I was doing that I didn't know I was doing highpointing yet. And then in New Jersey, I did a through hike, or a section hike of the Appalachian Trail, and I went through it. And at the time, they actually had the obelisk closed for repairs, so I couldn't actually get up to it. So this picture was taken in, I think I went back in 2014 to just get to the spot, because this is what it looked like, and I could only see it from a distance. But yeah, and then Adirondacks in upstate New York. If anybody has the opportunity to go there, it is a highlight of the Northeast. Very, very special place. It's actually, as you get up into New England and upstate New York, it's some of the places east of the Mississippi where you can actually get above tree line. So you experience more alpine biomes, plant biomes. And so Mount Marcy was super fun. Did it with my buddy, one of my forestry buddies, Dave. It's a good time. Mount Mansfield is a drive up. You can get with this knob here is the summit, and you can basically park right behind it. But I ended up doing this crazy hike with my buddy Rory. We went up through these drainages. We got lost. It was a whole thing. But a lot of good times. And then this is one. So talk about my tech savviness being kind of lacking. Look at that baby face. Also a hell of a lot more hair back there. But this is actually really funny, because there's going to be a couple of these hikes where the hike surprised me, because as I was hiking up, you get above tree line in Mount Washington. Mount Washington is known for some of the highest recorded winds in North America. It was windy that day, but either way, I was going up to the top, and I was I could hear something, and I didn't know what the hell I was listening to, because it sounded like a whistle. I'm like, what? It sounded like a train whistle. And sure as anything, when I popped up off the top, there's a train that goes to the top, there's a road that goes to the top. So there was probably 400 people at the summit when I got up there. And I had literally zero idea that any of that was up there. So it was super shocking to me, but par for the course, because I was totally unprepared. I'm like, whoa! But I got somebody to take my picture, so that was helpful. And they did a better job than I can with the blurriness. But yeah, but it's one of the tallest peaks east of the Mississippi. Also, Mount Mitchell in North Carolina is the tallest east of the Mississippi River, but pretty cool up there. Black Mountain in Kentucky, this is on private land. We were definitely trespassing when we went. We were supposed to get approval, but we just showed up, and there was a guy with maybe 6 teeth in his head that was up there at the top, and we had a really interesting interaction, because he's like, what are you doing here? And we're like, what are you doing here? And so we let each other hang and carried on. But very interesting. That's the other thing too, is since I completed it in 2014, quite a few more of these high points have now been more accessible, because They had been either privately owned or there was some challenge for people to actually get to them. And now they're either owned publicly or in some sort of land trust, like Rhode Island, that allows people to go to the actual geodetic survey point. There's actually Delaware, we'll get there. Delaware is in a guy's backyard in Wilmington, Delaware. So it's kind of awkward to be like looking over his fence, you know. But anyway, so Mount Mitchell, highest point east of the Mississippi River. I did this awesome fall backpacking trip with the Outdoor Club of Virginia Tech that I led the trip on, and was being selfish at the same point. I'm like, let's go on a backpacking trip, and then I'm gonna get a high point at the same time. So it was pretty cool. So in 2005, I did a summer job out in California. So on the way there, as luck would have it, I wanted to string together as many high points as I could. So heading out, did Brasstown Bald in Georgia, Sassafras Mountain in North Carolina. The Sassafras Mountain in North Carolina was privately owned, so I was trespassing on that one too. And now that's owned by the state, and they have this like massive like outlook or overlook tower thing, and like some pretty cool amenities at the top now. So I hear. Woodall Mountain, Mississippi, real exciting. That's the view. That's all you get. This little tiny hole through a power line corridor. That's it, and that's still, from what I looked up last night, it's still the same. That's all you get. Surprisingly, Chiaha Mountain in Alabama, the far southern end of the Appalachian Mountains, is absolutely gorgeous. We camped overnight there, illegally, right at the trailhead, and then got these shots for sunrise. It was awesome. So again, it's one of those things where some of these peaks are like not too exciting, or the areas, but man, there's always some kind of beauty that just surprises you. What is it? I forget the names of the mountains. Is it the Boston Mountains, I think, in Arkansas, where we hit this on the trip out west. Magazine Mountain. Also, you know, film camera, not the best picture. So we skipped from all those southern peaks or southern states and went all the way out to Arizona. And if you note, this is in May, and the snow coverage was thick. There was a ton of snow. My buddy John Homick was with me, another Virginia Tech forestry student. Here he is. We ended up hiking pretty much as we started coming out of these ski runs and went into the trees. We lost the trail like almost immediately, so we just started bushwhacking up a drainage. We pretty much got just above tree line to like 11,800 feet, like right in there. The wind was howling and we were post-hauling. It was very miserable. He was wearing jeans. I was like, well, we're gonna turn around. So we bailed out of there. And my girlfriend at the time was with us, and she was just like, you guys are idiots. She stayed at the car, she didn't even join us. But we had a good time. So I worked at Mountain Home State Forest that summer, so it was kind of like cool to have an augering out in the Sierra Nevada. This is a tree that I measured on a plot. This is a giant sequoia that measured 37 feet in diameter at breast height, which is where, as a forester, we measure trees 4.5 feet off the ground. There is a room inside this tree that you could go inside, because you can see there's a cat face that got burnt out. So I love that tree. I went back to it in 2012. It's still there. Well, I don't know. It's been another 13 years, maybe. I don't know. There has been a fire on that state forest, so I don't know if it impacted any of those big ones, but pretty cool. So because I was in California, shot over and got Boundary Peak in Nevada. Super, super cool spot on the far northern end of the White Mountains, basically directly north of Death Valley. And what's kind of unique with these high points is, especially with a lot of the high points, they end up being really close to borders. This one is specifically called Boundary Peak. So the peak directly behind me is Montgomery Peak, and it is in California, and it is 400 feet higher than the spot that I'm standing in Nevada. So kind of unique, but really cool. I mean, I had one point like read about all the geology of the White Mountains, but I pretty much forget it all. But very unique stuff. It looks really cool, kind of melty, unique. This is a picture from the top looking out at the Sierra Nevada. So some of the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra were visible. So in 2005, when I got done with my summer work experience, was heading back to Virginia Tech, had this plan. I think I was planning on, with my girlfriend at the time, we were planning on doing like 11 high points on the way back. We didn't even get out of California. So what happened was, and this isn't the best background, but I picked her up in LA. We drove maybe 2 hours, and in the middle of the Mojave Desert at 11:30 p.m., transmission goes out, car is completely shot. So ended up getting towed 70 miles to Needles, California for $500. And you know, I fought one fire that summer, so I had a little extra cash in my pocket, but I pretty much burned it all on this whole debacle. So we basically determined the most inexpensive way to get out of this pickle was to rent a car in Needles, California on an Indian reservation, drive it to Phoenix, pick up another rental car, drive that sucker back to Needles, California, and then drive back to Phoenix and fly back to the East Coast. So on the way, that all turned to hell because what happened was we drive to Phoenix with the first car, rented the second one. We're driving back to Needles, and I had looked on the map. I'm like, oh, I got this great way. We can go from Route 10 and cut right through the desert and go straight north up to Needles. Well, as we were going on that road, it's a 2-lane road, the road was closed. And the road was closed because of monsoonal moisture that had basically caused a flood. And so all of these patches along this road had where sand, you know, when it was like loaded with water and sand, it went across the road and blocked the road. And so we ended up going around the road closure sign because if we had gone a different route, the only other route would have added another 5 hours of driving to go all the way around in order. So we were just like, the hell with it, let's go through it. There was a trucker, he spoke Spanish, I spoke only English, so he was like showing me, he was like, you can, you know, basically he was telling me you can go around the sand pits. So we ended up driving through this whole thing with 2 cars. It was chaos. We actually got one of the cars stuck, had to let a little air out of the tires in order to get through the sand patch. That was really unfortunate, and also there was like a crazy thunderstorm out in front of us that looked like we were going right into it, and like it was like really ominous. Ended up getting onto the Indian reservation at 3 a.m. and I get pulled over. And as I get pulled over, the cop actually was talking to me on the loudspeaker to get my hands up and get out of the vehicle. I was like, what? So I get out of the vehicle and they see that I'm a baby-faced white boy. And they came up to me. Basically, my vehicle fit the description of a car that was involved in an armed robbery that day. So I get pulled over in this and they're like, what are you doing here? I was like, I'm dropping off a car, man. And they're like, you better get out of here. So I'm like, okay. So we continued on, we dropped off the car, we drove all the way to Flagstaff. But the thing was, is when we went to go get fuel, we dropped off the first car. The second car would not start because I'm guessing there was sand that had gotten up in it. Anyway, I ended up just jamming on the accelerator. It did end up starting. So we actually were on the car, or on the horn with the car insurer, the rental car company, and they were going to drive from Phoenix to come pick us up in Needles. That was going to take like 6 or 7 hours. Anyway, so luckily the car started, but then we went to Flagstaff, got a hotel, drove to Phoenix, sent stuff in the mail back to Virginia, flew to DC, to Dulles, rented another car, drove to Blacksburg, Virginia, and luckily my girlfriend Parrish, her grandparents from Kingsport, Tennessee, helped come up and do the shuttling with us. So it was crazy. 5 days is all that was, and it was maddening and I didn't get much sleep. But that's what you get when you're trying to do, you know, any kind of adventurous thing, I guess. But anyway, fast forward back into it. That fall, I ended up starting back in some of the eastern high points. I took a picture of this little church because their claim to fame was it was the smallest church in the U.S. that still had regular congregations. So I was like, well, that's noteworthy, so here you go. And then as a part of that little road trip that I did, I went and hit Pennsylvania and Backbone Mountain in Maryland. You know, very regular looking kind of viewpoints in the kind of central Appalachians, but pretty nonetheless. Here's that high point that I did on New Year's Eve in Delaware. It is literally like this hedgerow. If you look, like there's a fence right there, the geodetic survey marker is like right in that guy's backyard. So as the High Pointer Club, they determine like, if you go up against that fence, it counts. It's like, okay, but don't jump the fence. And then on a trip that I did on a road trip out to the Midwest, I got Ohio and Indiana. They were beautiful in their own right, especially around Hoosier Hill in Indiana. It's like really cool, rolly country. Really enjoyed that. Did a road trip out west with my dad that spring. And the funny thing about this is, as you can tell, it looks like everything else is higher than you. It was like, how is this the point? How did you guys figure this out? But yeah, and it's basically the point is right here on the end of an old what do you call it, like a dairy parlor from back in the day. But that's what it is. That's also on private land, and they were all good with people coming in and checking it out. So Harney Peak, I just found out just a little bit ago that they changed the name to Black Elk Peak to honor, I believe, a Sioux tribe chief from back in the day. But a unique thing, got to throw my little forestry bent on it here. If you look out, so the Black Hills of South Dakota are known for nearly being homogeneous. That just means it's pretty much all the same tree species. And there's a little bit of spruce, but it's mostly all ponderosa pine. If you can see closely, there's these little patches of orange. In 2006, this was the start of the mountain pine beetle epidemic in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And, oh no, here's still 2006, so you can see the little patches. There's a little bit here and there. And I went back in 2012, just hammered, like 80+% mortality. Really unfortunate, but either way, it's still beautiful, even with gray trees. So another, kind of thing that I throw at, when people ask me like, what are your favorite high points that you had done? The ones that I would say were the most surprising, North Dakota and Oklahoma. We'll get to Oklahoma in a little bit. But North Dakota was really unique because North Dakota at the time was a state that, you just drive through going 80 miles an hour. But in the southwestern corner of North Dakota, it has badlands similar to what you find around the badlands in South Dakota, and it's gorgeous. This was also on private land, but a really, really beautiful area, and I was out there with my dad, so we hiked around a little bit more, and they were not lying. There is a disclaimer about the soil out there, is that if it gets wet, it's like some of our soil around here, it just turns to basically like snot, and it's like super slick. There was a spot that we walked through, I almost fell right on my back because it was wet and very slick. But kind of unique, a place, like I said, I'll probably never go again, but pretty cool. And yeah, these formations were really lovely. And we also caught it in the spring, so with the green grass, it had that extra pop to it. I ended up moving to Wisconsin in 2006, and for 5 years of my time in Wisconsin, I actually ended up living only like about an hour and 15 minutes from this point. Timms Hill, far northwestern Wisconsin. This area is actually a county park with phenomenal cross-country skiing. If you're into that thing, there's really, really awesome cross-country ski trails here. But they've got a fire tower. It's cool to look out and see just a whole bunch of trees. This is actually a really cool place to go, any of the Great Lakes states in the fall to see the colors. It is tremendous. There's a lot of sugar maple up there, so they get those really beautiful reds and oranges and yellows. Up in the Boundary Waters is where Minnesota's High Point is. I did a little backpacking trip with one of my buddies. It was actually interesting too because when we were up there was a fire going on to the northwest that in the morning when we went up to the top, you could just see the smoke kind of billowing up, and then by the evening the fire had kind of woken up a little bit more, so it created for a really nice sunset. Really cool spot up there. Nearly ran into a moose on the trail, pretty damn scary, but fun. Mosquitoes almost the size of hummingbirds up there, pretty crazy. And then up in the UP of Michigan, there's my buddy Aaron doing a headstand on the actual geodetic survey. But that's up in another beautiful part of you know, the UP of Michigan, gorgeous sugar maple country. Pretty beautiful, very buggy, you gotta catch it right. Another private lands, High Point, Illinois, Charles Mound. It's in the Galena area in far northwestern Illinois. It's actually a spot where Illinois isn't like completely flat. They call it the Coulee Country, where it was unglaciated in the last ice age. So it's actually kind of neat, rolly hill country. But I got bitched out on the phone by the owner of this place because I tried to go do this hike because I was doing firefighting and I wasn't available in the summers because they only allow people to go to the High Point like, I think it's like 5 or 6 weekends a year. So she gave me the leniency to go there in November, so that was nice. And then again, going back to the boundary stuff, so the High Point of Connecticut is actually the side of a ridge. The high point of Mount Frisell is actually in Massachusetts. So you're basically on like the side of a slope where the geodetic survey marker is right on the boundary line. So it's kind of a unique spot. And then this picture is looking out into the Hudson Valley in New York. So really small states, everything's really tight together. Mount Greylock, Berkshire Mountains, Western Massachusetts. Kind of a rainy, cloudy day. Here we are with the blurriness again. So still doing film cameras back then. But that's looking down at the town of North Adams. It was really beautiful. That actually used to be a ski area. So we actually hiked the ski run up and down. And I did that with my dad. It was a good time. It was pouring rain when we went to the Rhode Island High Point, and my dad took the photo, and it was miserable out there. We're like, we gotta get back to the car. But this also now, this was on private land, and they apparently had this like whole thing with the private landowner that was like putting up cameras, and in the early 2000s, you know, having like camera traps and stuff was kind of a newer thing. But luckily now, there's a land trust that has access, so you can basically go to this High Point at any point you want now. You're basically just looking at woods though, it's not that great. But remember back, when me and John tried to climb this thing in May, this is March of 2007, and there is like a quarter of the amount of snow. And this hike ended up being beautiful. I did it with my buddy Aaron, with that baby face, look at all that hair. Me and Aaron cruising around up here. It was a really fun trip, me and him hiking up there. The wind was howling up there, so we kind of took shelter on the side. But the San Francisco peaks were a series of like what was a larger volcano that got, I forget what time it blasted off. My parents actually now live in Flagstaff, so we have a chance to check this out every time we go there. But really beautiful, and if you look, it's tough to see, but the Grand Canyon is right there, so it's pretty cool. Went on a road trip to start hammering out more high points after spring fire season was done in 2007 with my buddy John Wilburn, another forestry buddy of mine. We drove through 3 a.m., so we hit the high point in Nebraska. Didn't really, I mean, it looked pretty, like for what you could see, but it was basically just, you know, very little light. But I'd like to go back there because it's kind of like rolling plains. It looks pretty cool. So we went up. Bora Peak was one of our most like, or basically the main spot we were going after that Nebraska high point. And this is a class 3 climb. It's got a knife ridge up on it. There's actually fossilized aquatic life forms up on that knife ridge that the pictures that I took of that were just garbage, so I didn't even include them. But it was a really fun hike. And it just so happened at the top there was a golf stick and 2 golf balls. So me and John got to smack golf balls off of the top. Kind of thought about it afterwards, we just littered these golf balls. But, oh well, it was really cool. It was kind of a fun thing to be able to do when we got up to the summit. We're the only ones up there. Really beautiful. This is in the Lost River Range or something. It's one of the mountain ranges that are kind of like east of the Sawtooth. Very, very seldomly hiked. There's not a lot of trails in them, so it was a really, really cool place place to go with very few people. But yeah, very precipitous peaks, pretty fun place to climb around on. Nice picture of John's rear, climbing up one of the parts of the knife ridge. And then here's some views, actually to the west, that's the Sawtooth Range out there in kind of central-ish Idaho. Very beautiful area. And that's looking back up to Boar Peak right up there from down below. So our next plan was we drive from Idaho out to Oregon. We had a good buddy that lived out there, so we stayed with him. And this was the night before the climb, and we should have realized that with those clouds that weather's coming in, and we said to hell with it because we were like in our early 20s. Like the thing that I've come, like now being like 43 years old, I understand that mountains don't go anywhere, so you can come back. When I was in my 20s, it was like, we gotta do this now. So this is the picture from the summit. This was not good, man. This is not advised. So we had visibility of maybe 50 to 75 feet, and we were getting pelted with these little like grapple ice balls. There was no one on the mountain besides our two dumbasses for a good reason. No one else was going to do this. People die on Hood every year, and so not wise, but we did it. There's John, not enjoying it either. So a little side story, it was actually really sketchy. So wind was blowing really hard, we were shooting up this main couloir in the front, or like on the south side of the mountain, kick-stepping up through ice and snow. And John is trying to get my attention, he's like yelling down at me, but because the wind is blowing so hard, it was so hard to tell what the hell he was saying, and all he was doing was yelling, ah, 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 and pointing. And I kind of look over my left shoulder and I look down, and I'm going to get chills. It looked like a dead body. So basically what it was, it ended up, so we went up to the summit, we did our thing, and we came back down, because we were talking like, we literally saw a frozen dead body in this couloir. Like, what are we going to do about this? I guess we'll drop a GPS point, and then let the rangers know that we found a body up there, because they do lose bodies up there when people fall into crevasses, or wind events come through and bodies are covered by snow. So we ended up going to the top. It was a red jacket that we saw. So when we went up to the top, we like talked about what we're gonna do. We kick-stepped down to it, and luckily it was like a tattered jacket that the way it had like frozen to the snow, it looked like somebody's shoulder. Luckily it was just a jacket. So I was really not into seeing a frozen dead body, but so it was no big deal. But got us all worked up. So then later that summer I went back out and I took my friends, this is Cub and Amy, they were just dating at that time, and they now have two lovely kids and have been married for, probably 15 plus years. But these two, I kind of like told them, you're gonna come on this hike, and they're into backpacking. And actually Cub, I was actually telling someone before, Cub's dad had been doing highpointing when Cub was a kid. And so this was one of the hikes that Cub had not done. And so this was his like 30-second high point. And so it was kind of cool that he hadn't done a hike or a high point since he was like 13 or 14. And then he had gotten to go do this other one in his 20s with me. But the Uinta Range in northeastern Wyoming, or northeastern Utah, go check it out. It's one of the only mountain ranges in North America that run east to west. Most all of our mountain ranges run north-south. It's just the way that the faults and all the uplift occurred. So really beautiful area. These big, broad, massive valleys with this really outrageous rock. Really enjoyed all these boulders. There were boulder fields all over the place that we actually camped amongst these boulders. Had whole herds of mountain goats kind of come down through our camp in the morning. Super, super cool. I really like Frisbee, so got to do barefoot Frisbee in the alpine meadow grass. And so me and Cub playing Frisbee with, so Kings Peak, I should have mentioned it when with that hike, or that's Kings Peak, so that's the actual high point right there. This couloir right here is where some people go. We actually went around the backside up here. Another thing to know about me, I've gotten a little better in my older years, but I'm cheap, okay? And so in 2007, I needed a new pair of boots. So on Sierra Trading Post, you can get these screaming deals. Well, they didn't have my size. They had a 13 and a half. I'm a 13. I was like, oh, well, it's 87 bucks for this pair of boots. I'm going to buy them. I'm going to wear 3 extra pairs of socks. Well, it was so damn hot on the approach hike that I didn't want to wear the extra pairs of socks, so I only wore 1 pair of socks. Within 3 miles of the hike, I had $half size blisters on both heels. I was like a little baby. I was in so much pain. Amy and Cub were like dealing with me, but I was complaining a lot. That was probably really annoying. But anyway, we ended up continuing the whole hike. I spent the whole rest of the time actually hid my boots in a bush, like 3 miles into the hike, and then did the rest of the hike in chacos. So I'll show you a picture. So this is the one saddle coming up the backside here. There's Cub and Amy right there. I'm in chacos, and I'll show you in a couple. But this is that one saddle that we got to looking back down. If you could zoom in closely, and this is, I now have a digital camera. So there, down in here is where our camp was. So we went up to the top. It was gorgeous. This is up on the summit. The weather was kind of getting a little iffy. Amy unfortunately had a bout of altitude sickness, so she got sick at the summit. It was kind of a bummer, but we got her off pretty quick, and she was fine afterwards. But you can see the chacos. There were snowfields that we had to cross, and so I walked through that shit super gingerly to avoid getting completely soaked. But I had to take a picture looking out over, and like, surprisingly, even through snow, chacos, I'll live by them. Since I first put a pair of chacos on in 2002, it's the only sandal I will ever wear. These things are amazing. It's probably like the 3rd moose I ever saw in my life, so I definitely had to stop and take a picture when we were hiking out. But we ended up doing this hike in 2 days. So we hiked in, I want to say, from the trailhead to the summit and back was around 20 miles, or maybe 16, 17 miles. So it was kind of a burly hike, especially Cub and Amy. I do really well at high elevation, hence why I do all this. But my friends, it was a little tougher for them. So we left Utah and went into Colorado, and we went to a Rockies Brewers game. We got really rowdy, pretty hungover for this hike. So much so that Cub and Amy were like, I'm not doing this hike. So I ended up going up with some other friends, and it was a rough hike, I will say. But made it to the top. It's a super easy hike. This is actually, out of all the 14ers in Colorado, they say that this is pretty much the easiest one. They rate it as a class 1 hike. This is pretty much some of the steepest of trail that you'll come across. They pretty much kept the trail under 10% slope, so it's really easy to get up there. And it's this is looking behind it, and then this is Mount Massive right there. Because they call this like half moon drainage or something. Anyway, super beautiful. Yeah, just love some Colorado mountains. I don't think I mentioned a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I completed all the 14ers in Colorado, so now bounce all around these. And then I'm currently working on the 100 tallest peaks in Colorado. I've got 23 left or something. So I'll be up and around Mount Elbert. There's a couple more centennial peaks, which the non-14er centennials are basically 13,800 to 14,000 feet. So there's a couple around there I got to go back for. Super beautiful area. Yeah, I think that's looking up towards Holy Cross up there. My college friends Brianne and Auntie, and you'll see them coming up here shortly. These two were involved in some other hikes. And then this is looking down, so Leadville's over here, and the range that they share going over into Breckenridge. Another one, right on the boundary line. So see this little patch of trees? That is a ranch in Colorado. So pretty much like right on the other side of this dirt is where Colorado starts. So everything you look to the west is higher than where I am. So kind of unique. And then surprise, I'm talking. That's kind of, well, I always point out that. So that winter, I talked my buddy Aaron in doing a really cool trip out to Hawaii. Snow in Hawaii. Really awesome. We ended up going up to the top of this peak. And so we're on Mauna Kea at 13,000 and some change. What is that? Yeah, let's see. 13,796. I want to say Mauna Loa is that big shield volcano on the south side of the or kind of south central part of the Big Island. And we stayed up on the top of Mauna Kea until after dark, so we could do the dark sky stuff. And it was actually really cool, and I didn't even think about it. We could see the orange glow of the lava out by Pahoa on the far southeastern corner of the island where the actively flowing lava was, so that was really cool. I took a picture of it, but it was obviously blurry and shaky, so it wasn't worth putting on here. But yeah, the observatories, this is one of it's like here in the Atacama Desert down in Bolivia that have the clearest skies for scientific observations of the heavens. So this was really cool to hike up by. You could do tours of it, but I didn't have time for that. We were hanging around. So we're trying to get to Rainier. Here's my buddy John, and you see his face, very unamused. So the whole plan was we went up to do an overnight dispersed camping, and then the next morning we're going to go into the park and start climbing up to Camp Muir on the south side of Rainier. A freak snowstorm, which is super common in the Cascades, a freak snowstorm came in and blanketed us with like 3 to 4 inches of super wet and heavy snow. I decided, this was my own damn fault, I'm a forester and I know better. We camped in a stand of red alder trees. They're super, super brittle. All night long, there were branches breaking and dropping like all over the place. You could hear them. We barely slept at all. And at one point, one snapped and there was a boom, a thud that felt like it was like right there. When we got out, there was like an 8-inch branch that was about 12 feet long that was no more than 4 feet from our tent. Kind of lucky, but so anyway, that is the road that we came up the night before. So it took us like 2.5 hours. I didn't have a saw because we flew to Seattle. I didn't have a saw or a hatchet or anything. I felt like the guys at Monty Python trying to cut a tree down with a herring. I mean, all you could do is just like rip it out of the freaking way, and we got out of there, but it was chaotic. And yeah, I mean, also very pretty once we got down to where it was more of the conifer forest, quite beautiful. So we went to Rainier. We got to the headquarters where you get your permits and all that stuff, and the mountain was closed. 2 Japanese climbers got pinned down and died the night before. So we basically had to scrap our plans. So we didn't even leave the trailhead, but because they closed down for search and rescue and all that stuff, so we couldn't even attempt it. So we ended up going to Seattle and doing other stuff, and then out to the Olympic Peninsula. But that's the thing about mountains. Again, like I said earlier, they're not going anywhere. So when this type of stuff foils your plans, you got to come back at another time. So the big trip. This was a crazy trip. I got my new pickup truck. I always had like regular cars before. I got a new pickup truck. Well, it wasn't new, but it was a used pickup truck. And I did this Highpointing trip, half with my girlfriend at the time and the other half by myself. 3 weeks, 7,800 miles. Went from Wisconsin through Missouri, out to California, through Texas, all the way to Florida, and then back to Wisconsin. It's crazy. And I'm also a younger guy. Probably not be able to do that now. But Ozark Mountains, very beautiful in Missouri. Definitely enjoyed that. The other one that was the most exciting, I will say, out of all of the kind of like less, you know, they're not like the big beautiful mountain kind of stuff, was Oklahoma. So we drove from Tom Sauk through the night. We got to the trailhead for Black Mesa at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and when I set up the tent and was going to bed, you could see the mesas and kind of the cool desert terrain, which I didn't do much for research. I didn't really know what I was getting into. But, this high point is only about a 2-hour drive from here. It's really close. If you're familiar with the Raton Mesa and like that geologic formation of those basalt mesa tops that start in Trinidad with Fisher's Peak, this is the same formation in the panhandle of Oklahoma. So that whole kind of border country between Colorado and New Mexico, from Trinidad all the way over to the panhandle, is the same mesa country. Super beautiful. Choyo cactus. I was just like a kid in a candy store. No one was there. I was like, this is such a cool place. And little did I know I ended up living within 2 hours of it, you know, years in the future. But found one of these little horny toad guys and this fence lizard. I was having so much fun. It was a blast. But really beautiful, very reminiscent to the country. Like if you go out towards Kim and south of Kim in eastern Los Animas County, same exact. You see all this basalt rock everywhere. Really cool. This is literally in the middle of nowhere, and they have this really nice obelisk that has like all this information about it. Was not anticipating that was going to be there, so that was cool. I've come to absolutely adore Choyo cactus, and these were in bloom when we were out there, so they were kind of on the tail end, so there were a few, but really, really geeked out over those. Oxidized copper, I'm geeking out like crazy on this hike, just enjoying the crap out of it. So Oklahoma and North Dakota, of like all of the lesser hikes, those were the two that really stood out to me. This is also not even two hours away. Wheeler Peak, we hit this on a hike. Got the nice tundra grass and green, some Rocky Mountain sheep, calypso orchid. There's Leah, my girlfriend at the time, walking through the snow. It's a really beautiful hike. We ended up actually we got forced off the mountain pretty early that day. But it was a glorious, glorious hike. Just enjoyed the heck out of that country. Also, this is kind of right above the Taos ski area for anybody that's into skiing. This area is awesome. Big time highlight. Yeah, this is actually some of the Taos ski valley right there. But absolutely gorgeous. Love me some Sangre de Cristos, right outside our back door here. But here's, some views. This actually, there's like Wheeler Peak and then there's Walters Peak. They're right next to each other. This is on the top of Walters, I believe. So did some running around actually we came right through the Great Sand Dunes on that big trip, and then went over to Utah and did we went out to the Maze in Canyonlands District. That was cool. Dropped off my girlfriend at the time, Leah, in Vegas, and then I continued on my own on that hike, or on that trip, and went to Whitney, and here it is. It's a monster. Again, this goes back to I wish I would have done some research. The hike from the trailhead at the Whitney Portal to the summit and back is 22 miles with like 6,700 feet of gain or something like that. If I had done some research, there is a mountaineer's route that goes through a couloir on the northern flanks of Whitney that drops that hike from 22 to 14 miles. I would have much preferred taking the steeper route to save my feet. My ankle ended up getting inflamed and everything from overuse. 22 miles is a long way. But yeah, super craggy, outrageous. The Sierra Nevada granite is this kind of like white with like flecks of pink in it. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Summit Shack up on the top. You can see the haze. There was actually a 30,000 acre fire in the Golden Trout Wilderness, which was just next to where I was working at that Mountain Home State Forest with those big sequoias a couple summers before. But super cool spot. Just lovely up there. The Sierras, if you haven't been, go check them out. There were a really, really long range running from like Bakersfield all the way up past Truckee and Tahoe area. I mean, Sierras are special. But yeah, just more lovely photographs. Pretty cool anomaly they call sun cups, where when snowpack melts, it makes these little towers and stuff. I've never seen them as abrupt as these in the Sierras. I did a bunch of hikes in 2005 where these sun cup holes with these like spikes of snow could end up being like 2.5 feet tall. Really, really cool. But yeah, some views out into the, this isn't Golden Trout, it's another wilderness. I forget the name of the wilderness. But the Kern Canyon, if anybody's familiar with California, the Kern Canyon, which is a really hard to get to canyon way back in the wilderness area, is right there. It's like, it's deeper than the Grand Canyon, but it's like super narrow, so it doesn't get as much play as much as like the Grand Canyon does. But yeah, just beautiful, beautiful parts in the Sierras. And this is like one of the final lakes. This is basically the route back down to the trailhead. Ooh. So I was geeking out with flowers too. So a lot of beautiful alpine flowers up in the Sierras. Just eating them up. Here's some more. This one is actually a really interesting plant. It's, what is it? Saprophytic. It gets all of its nutrients from trees' roots, and it doesn't have any chlorophyll. But really cool. It's called snow plant. It's this like red shaft that you see all over in the mountains of the Sierras. Really enjoyed those. So as a part of that hike, after part of that big trip, left Mount Whitney, went to the LA area, hung out with some buddies from college, and then started my trek back to across the country to Florida, and went and did Guadalupe Peak in a national park there, right on the border with New Mexico. And this is a biodiversity hotspot. It's actually where Sonoran Desert plants, Rocky Mountain plants, and Great Plains plants all come together on these mountains, and super, super cool for tree nerds and plant nerds. But really enjoyed that. I mean, just looking at this looks like a mixed conifer stand that you would see up in Cuchara. But then on the other side, you got cactuses that are like the height of your, yourself. Pretty unique area, but really cool because you're right on the edge of dropping down towards El Paso. Really cool area. Didn't even really know this was here. Guadalupe Mountains National Park, worth checking out. If you guys go to Carlsbad National Park to see the big cave, this is like 45 minutes to the south, just into Texas. It's really worth your time. But yeah, again, just beautiful. And when you think of Texas, you don't think of mountains, so it's kind of cool. Check that out between here and Big Bend. That's where the good stuff is. But yeah, caught it early morning, so you get the good shadows, and just lovely. This is looking down toward Mexico. Just, yeah, and you can kind of see like in these, I think that's actually, well, that might be something in like the yucca family, but there are some cycads down there in the Guadalupe Mountains, which are like a super prehistoric plant. So like when I say like it's like a melting pot of like biodiversity, Guadalupe Mountains has got it all for when you think of the West. Oh, I forgot about Louisiana. That's a state. So after leaving Texas, drove across and ended up camping the night before this hike. And I pulled into this town, and the temperature on a bank sign, like a neon sign, said it was 98 degrees, and it was 10 o'clock at night. And I camped in that. I didn't sleep well. It was really rough. Very, very hot in Louisiana. Very, very humid. But a nice little hike in the morning. It was drenched in sweat. Pretty rough. But left there, went to Florida. This is the lowest high point of all. It's only 345 feet above sea level. Again, it kind of looks like stuff around you is taller, and it's right on the border with Alabama. So if you could see through the trees, there are bigger things to the north. So here we go. Again, we had one failure on Rainier. Here's our second one. The weather was incredible. I did this hike in 2008. We went up the northwest side of the mountain on the Emmons Glacier, which is a non-traditional route. Most people use the south face going up from the main headquarters through Camp Muir. Super, super commonplace. Sometimes they have like 200, 300, 400 people camping in Camp Muir. When we went up this way, there was like maybe 40 people here, but super incredibly beautiful area. Also, the route finding through the glaciers, as you can see, all of these crevasses, is a little more challenging on Emmons. That's why I let less people do it. But this is like one of the dudes. That's Alex, one of the guys I went with. But you can see the route here, and then the drop off into the crevasses almost immediately. So this is the crew. There's my friend Anthi from college and Brian, and then we got lucky. So Anthi's older brother is Alex. Alex is credited with, I forget how many, I think it's something like 20 or 25 first ascents on peaks in Bolivia and Chile. Very accomplished mountaineer. So he luckily, he came down to our level to go up and showed me, actually learned a lot, quite a few tricks from him, and learned a lot of rope work. And so this was an incredibly valuable trip, even though it was a failure, but we'll get into the rest of it. So here's Steamboat Prow. This is where we camped, just on this little knob of rock. You can see all the tents. You can see that one trail where we were coming up, and then we continued up through. As soon as we left camp, Brianne, we could tell, was starting to have issues. One with elevation, and she was really freaked out about going over the crevasses. And then because of getting so nervous, she wasn't eating. So we were basically trying to force feed her. It was, I don't know, we should have just left her at camp. But we wanted to push on and keep the team intact. So we kept going up. And this is the view. This is Glacier Peak, and then you can barely see over here to the left, or no, right there, is Baker, which are the two far northern volcanoes in Washington State. But we got up there, the weather was absolutely perfect, but because you need snow bridges to stay intact as the day goes on and you start melting, you lose consistency of snow. It gets really, really dangerous between slide avalanches and then breaking through into crevasses. So this is me. I'm very, very sad. This is where we decided to turn around, where we we got to turn around or else shit's going to get bad. So I was looking out and just I was containing, I'm an energetic guy, so I was containing my upsetness, anger, and all of the feelings because it was such a perfect day. But as mountains have it, it wasn't the right day, so we turned around and went back. But down climbing was awesome. I got to bump back into the back of the rope team, and so I got these awesome photos. So for as much as I didn't get to summit that time, I just geeked out over the awesome, awesome views of going through the, they call them seracs, where you have these big piles of rice, big piles of ice, where you have these big jutting pieces of ice going everywhere. So I got to take a bunch of pictures of that, but beautiful going down. The snow was getting really sticky, so our crampons were getting balled up with snow. We made the right call, much to my chagrin, but still more of Anthi and Brianne coming down. This stripe is a glissade chute. You just hop on your butt and slide down, so I had a really good time with that. Almost lost control and went into these rocks, but I held it together. The other folks on the crew didn't want to do that, but I was like, we gotta do this, this is so much fun. But over here, when we actually do summit it, my first Leatherman that I ever owned is in that drainage. It fell off the side of my pack and is somewhere over here. But anyway, so still heading down. Beautiful. All right, people ask me, Denali's crazy, right? Yeah, Denali's crazy. What was your hardest high point? This was my hardest high point. The thing that you will look at is, I did it over 2 days. Most normal people do it in 4. This is 25 to 30 miles round trip with 7,500 vertical. And we ended up doing it in 2 days because my buddy John, who you saw from earlier, John Wilburn, his flight to Billings got canceled. So we lost a whole day of our trip, and we were already on a tight timeline. So we cut our 3 days attempt of granite down to 2 days. It was hardcore. So here's John. So once you leave there's one route that everyone goes, but I don't like lightning, and it's up on a plateau where you camp, and Lightning freaks me out, and you'd be above tree line camping, so I opted to not do that route. So we went and did this other route through Avalanche Lake, which is far more pretty, but there's not really a trail. It's all kind of like you follow game trails, so it's really, really, it's really hard on you. It's really, really tough moving. You go through all of these scree and talus fields where you're basically boulder hopping with a heavy pack with all your ropes and stuff. Because this hike also has class 5 climbing on it, so you're actually doing rock climbing. So we had to bring ropes and anchor and gears to make anchors for. We actually didn't protect each other going up, but we just rappelled down. So we free climbed up this one, but it's unbelievably beautiful. So we went up. This was getting up into Avalanche Lake. Here's Avalanche Lake itself. There's our camp. The route to go to the summit, so you can't see the summit, it's kind of obscured, it's up here. So you basically go around this lake, there's all these car-sized boulders that you gotta climb through, it's freaking crazy. And then you go up and get up this ridge and go up here, and then you go around the south face and go up the steep class 5 rock up there. So this is that saddle that I saw in the previous photo that we were hiking towards in the morning. There's John down below me. He was getting gear adjustments, but you can kind of see, like, there's no trail. You're basically just boulder hopping across all that nonsense. Definitely wore us out on the way back out. But to save weight, we also didn't bring our crampons, which was dumb because this snowfield was a pretty tight pitch and it was early morning. So I had more solid sole boots than John did. Because he didn't want to put them on yet. I mean, he was doing, I don't know, we were having our issues. So I was kick-stepping across the snowfield, and you know, if you fall, you slide. Like, I don't even think we had ice axes. So we didn't anticipate rock-solid snowfields. So, you know, there's always curveballs in the mountains. The one thing I wanted to note, so there's the summit up there, but like, this is a view to the right in this photo. This is a glacier. Apparently, from what I understand, that glacier is now gone. It has melted out, and this was just in, what was this, 2010, I think. Yeah, what was this? Sorry to go back. 09. Okay, so from what I understand now, like 15 years later, that glacier is gone. The earth is warming. So anyway, getting up, this is the saddle. This is looking over to the south. The Beartooth Absaroka Wilderness in south central Montana is amazing. Pretty much anything, if you get around Wyoming, you get into the big mountains, it is so gorgeous. It's a place to go check out. There's a mountain goat, mama and baby, and there's John right there. We basically like went right up to him, and I mean, we got within like 10 feet of these two, and any mama is protective of their babies, but they didn't really give us much of an issue, and it's amazing to watch these guys cover ground on super steep rock. It's like nothing for them. And even the baby had no issue at all. Super cool. But here's some of the stuff. So here's a view of John from the back and from above. Basically the 600 vertical feet to the very summit block is all class 4 and class 5 climbing. So like I mentioned before, we free climbed it all and then rappelled down, and let me tell you, that rappel never felt so good to just zing past all that stuff that we had issue going up. But got to the summit, you can kind of see thunderstorms were building, so we needed to boogie, and the whole plan now was get down, break down camp, and then get back to the trailhead and drive to Washington because we're going to go attempt Rainier in another day. So it's crazy. I was a younger man then. But yeah, so this is looking down. So our camp is like right over here. That's Avalanche Lake. This is probably one of my favorite views of all the Highpointing because of how precipitous it is, like looking down. But super gorgeous. Again, Beartooth Absarokas, if you guys have a chance. There's awesome backpacking loops and stuff that you can do out there. You don't have to do this crazy, you know, getting up high, but really, really cool. Again, you can kind of see the thunderheads blooming. By the time we got back to camp, the thunderheads were coming through, so we started getting rained on, and we were still above tree line, so we were mad scramble trying to get down into the trees. But before that, we still, yeah, so this was all views up high, but there's some of the rappel that we did, and there's John coming down this down climb. But yeah, more peaks, looking down Avalanche Lake. All right, this is the last time we saw both of John's mountaineering boots as a pair. Somewhere in here, he lost one of those boots, and he realized it when we were like way down here. And so like, he puts a pack down, he looks, he sees his missing boot, and without saying anything, he turned around and just started running. I'm like, oh no, because the sun's going down. I was like, we need to stay together. So he took off, he was super frustrated, and I get it, because mountaineering boots are not cheap. So I chased him down. I was like, hey man, I was like, let's go like maybe a quarter mile. If we don't find it, we'll turn around. So unfortunately, he lost his one boot, which is super bummer, because then we went to an REI in Seattle to rent another pair of boots, which he literally just had 2 boots, but that's okay, it's the way it goes. So, to save you all the badass photos of Rainier, to say we drove from, because we did on the 2nd and the 3rd for Granite Peak, and then we drove on the 4th to Rainier. We got on the mountain on the 5th, again, because we were tight on time, because we lost today with John's flight. We ended up summiting Rainier in 2 days. We did the Emmons Glacier, same as when I did it with that whole pack, the previous year. And it was awesome because we were blowing by other rope teams. Me and John are really well equipped for excelling at high elevation. So we were blowing by all these rope teams that left like an hour or 2 hours earlier than us on the way up. And we ended up getting up to the summit block, and we were up there for a half an hour all by ourselves. And then all of a sudden you can see him over here. That's the Camp Muir side, or the Muir Field side. While we were standing up there, 70 or 80 climbers came up over the top, and we're like, that's our cue, let's go. So we were able to hold that whole time by ourselves, which is pretty rare on Rainier. So we had it all to ourselves, super cool, and then we let other people take over when we took off. But yeah, there's John enjoying himself up there. He was super stoked. This is his first, oh no, that's right, he had done Hood. But this is one of his first big volcanoes up in the Cascades. Super cool. This is the view back down. There's Steamboat Prow where we camped, and the route, the trailhead is down here in the clouds. So, all right, so this would leave us now with, I have Gannett Peak, Denali, and Katahdin is all that remains. And in 2010, really challenging, and not trying to throw too much shade on the U.S. Forest Service, but I was calling these guys for like weeks leading up to this trip. Hey, what are conditions like? Do you guys know what's going on? Do you have any snowmobile reports? Do you have anything? And nobody knew a damn thing about what conditions were. So I was like, well, this is the time I have off, let's go. So once we got out there and we saw the Wind River Range, there's a lot of snow. So this sucked. My buddy Aaron, sorry for the vulgarity, but he was not happy with the decision that I was like, let's still go, let's try this out. And this was a brutal, brutal hike to try to go. So Gannett Peak, you can go 2 different ways. From the east side of the Wind Rivers, it's a 45-mile from trailhead to summit and back. From the west side through Pinedale, which is the route we did, is 50 miles out and back. If you ever do either, the Pinedale side, even though it's longer, it is way more beautiful. It's so awesome. It's gorgeous. It's also, when there's snow, really, really hard. So this is kind of what it looked like in a lot of places. So we were post-holing like literally up to our waists with 70-pound packs, because we had all our climbing gear and all our food for an entire week. You can see this is the creek that comes out of Seneca Lake. This was a super hairy creek crossing because the water was super high with snow melt. I should have said let's turn around way earlier than we did, but Aaron will even tell you to this day, even though he was torn up and he had blisters and everything, what we got to experience in Titcomb Basin, this is Titcomb Basin, This is arguably noted as one of the most beautiful basins in the lower 48. And I would say, without question, it is the most beautiful basin I've been in, and I've been in a lot of basins in the mountains in the lower 48. It looks a little different when you get there when you're at a time when you're supposed to be there. This is very, very snow-laden, tons of ice. We turned around pretty much right here, but we camped in this area and experienced a crazy thunderstorm. We experienced some outrageous sunsets. It was a blast for just that night that we were up there. But yeah, just gorgeous. So Gannett Peak is actually obscured, but for what's about to come, our next hike to actually summit it, Bonnie Pass is this little pass right here. You basically have to hike all the way through Titcomb Basin, over that pass, and then back through a bunch more stuff, and then go up Gannett Peak, way back behind this big mound there. So this is kind of cruising. This is in the area where we were camping. We had a very aggressive marmot that was trying to get in our stuff, try to get in our tent, try to get in our packs, was chewing on our bear box or our bear bins. I threw a lot of rocks at it, never hit it, but it was a real interesting situation with a single marmot terrorizing us. But here's like kind of a zoom in. I went up on a ridge top, or like a little ridge band to look up. But that's that Bonnie Pass that I was talking about. Again, I actually think that little piece there is the shoulder of it. But this is probably my favorite picture that I've taken in all of my high pointing stuff when it comes to the lower 48. This is Island Lake, and this is Fremont Peak. It's like 13,400 and something feet tall. But again, talking about how amazing Titcomb Basin is, this place is outrageous. So this is looking back through, this is the area that we hiked through to get back to Pinedale, but that's looking back, there's Fremont Peak, and then Bonnie Pass is over there. But super cool. So fast forward, I bought a house in the end of 2010. 2011 was totally chewed up with being an adult, and so 2012, back at it, and was able to summit Gannett Peak on the 18th of July. So I'm standing on the top of Bonnie Pass, so that's Gannett Peak right there. From here you go down, you cross this glacier, you go by this moat on this glacier, up into this. This is called the Gooseneck Glacier, and you hike up the Gooseneck. There's a giant bergschrund that you have to cross that you're really hoping that there's a snow bridge to get you across, because the bergschrund, if you guys familiar with the bergschrund?
No.
It's basically where a glacier, when it changes direction on its flow, because glaciers are moving even though they look static, where they're kind of like coming off the mountain, it's where the elevation or the pitch of the glacier changes, and it develops these big broken crevasses. And a bergschrund usually has an upper lip and a lower lip, so in a lot of bergschrunds you actually have to go down in them and then climb up the other side. It's kind of sketchy when you look down, it's just black. Ooh. But Gooseneck Glacier had a super massive snow bridge that was probably 4 feet wide. So we were able to, my buddy Matt Dale, in coming pictures, he came with me. He got freaked out when we were on the Gooseneck Glacier. So another thing that you don't do in mountaineering is you don't go across bergschrunds and crevasses not tied in, and I went across solo. So, but I was going to get to the top of this freaking thing no matter what, so bad breaking of a rule in mountaineering, but did it anyway because Matt didn't want to go up, so I continued and I summited this solo. But so Titcomb Basin, if you remember back to those photos when it's just all snow and ice everywhere, this is a better time to be up there. The mosquitoes were crazy, but it was unbelievably beautiful. And then it's also deceivingly long. This basin is like 4 miles long, so we ended up camping like way up here, whereas we camped in the mouth, me and Aaron, when it was all snow laden. But yeah, there's our little tent setup spot. Actually, no, we did a first night and then we did a second night up there, up moving. Again, geeking out on the flowers. My favorite alpine wildflower is the silky phacelia. I don't know how you say that properly, but there's a blurry picture, sorry. That's my favorite one. You can find it in the Sangre de Cristos around here. Absolutely gorgeous. Really geeked out on all the wildflowers. But again, kind of some cool pictures of I went up on the side of the Titcomb Basin. There's these kind of suspended lakes that have isolated populations of Rocky Mountain cutthroat trout, which is kind of special, and I think there's golden trout up there too. But anyway, hiking around up in there, getting a viewpoint. This is that moat, if you remember in that first photo, that moat that we went across. There's my buddy Matt, hiking along there. This is getting up, this is up on the shoulder side. I've already gone over the birch run. I should have taken pictures of the birch run, but because there was such a pucker factor, I was really just focused on business and not taking pictures when I was going over that. But in order to go over the birch run on the way back, I actually went backwards and kick-stepped going down because I couldn't actually see where I was going. It's kind of spooky. And also not being anchored was not smart, but hey, here I am, guys. We're all good. This is my first ever selfie, and it's blurry. Surprise! But yeah, well, I was really happy because I got to. This is on the summit. While I was up there, there was a climbing guide that came up afterwards, and he came up with 2 clients, and we had this conversation, and we had kind of a conversation about going over the birch run, and he's like, you did it at a safe time, but he's like, in a week, not a good idea. I was like, all right, cool, I appreciate hearing that from you, cool. But you can see the glaciers and how their snow capping was kind of melting off, so you can see the more like dark colored like blue of those glaciers. This is looking out, you can kind of see them, that's the Tetons out there. Northwestern Wyoming, guys, freaking gorgeous. Absolutely love the Wind River Range. But yeah, more views to the north in the Wind Rivers. This is a cool thing also to jump back on global warming. This was in 2012. This lake appeared in 2010. It had been covered by a glacier up until the point where the glacier melted off enough that all of a sudden, boom, there's a lake there. So it's another kind of piece and testament to how quickly things are melting. But yeah, so this was a crazy freaking deal. So this is on the ridge coming down the Gooseneck Glacier. Birch runs behind us. You can see there was a tent, some guys that were sitting. I actually think that was that guide I was talking about. So while we were coming down, we heard this crazy loud crash, boom, boom, boom. We looked across, and from right up in this area, I don't even know how big, a house-size chunk of the mountain broke off and rolled, and it went like boom, 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 and then it, like right in here, it went airborne and then flew off. And you can actually, if you look closely, you can see this kind of like scuff mark in that snow. That freaking boulder slammed into that snow and then rolled out of view right down into this little moat area. And the trail from the east approach to get to Gannett Peak goes literally right through there. You're just like, oh my God, like I hope nobody was down there. But like, I've spent a lot of time in the mountains, and then even since 2012, I've never seen a rock calving that size. That was crazy. And very, very loud. It echoed through this whole basin. So this is a moulin, or a moulin, or I don't even know, I think it's a French word. It's basically where water is just pouring down through the crevasses in the glacier. This was a really cool sound, because it was like the water is just gushing through, and it's a free fall all the way down to the bottom of the glacier. So we're going to take a couple pictures of those. But this is looking bottom, Bonnie Pass down toward Titcomb Basin. Freaking awesome. Beautiful spot. That's our camp. We got to go back to and celebrate. Even though Matt didn't get to the summit, he was super stoked. It was a great time. There's Matt's little face poking out of there. It was a good time. Sunset was gorgeous. It was just, this was number 48. I had Katahdin and Denali left. This is my first time ever seeing an American marten. Super cool little guy. Enjoyed that. And this is more of the kind of like cool, like very like rock facey, bouldery kind of country that you approach to get to Titcomb Basin from Pinedale. Absolutely gorgeous. Gorge Lake, I've had this on my list to go visit at some point. Maybe I will. It's this gorgeous like glacially carved lake in the Wind Rivers. Super cool. All right, so the big one, Denali. Ended up doing this in 2013. If you look at the dates, June 20th to July 9th, spent a total of 20 days on the mountain. It's a lot of time. Luckily, because of my job with firefighting and stuff, I was able to take a lot of time off when I banked a bunch of times, so this was possible because of that job, so thank you, Wisconsin DNR. But this is a shot from Talkeetna, and I want to just go through real quick. So when I was flying to Alaska, it was like clear days, beautiful. We were going over the Chugach Range in southeast Alaska, and I was on the right side of the plane, and I was looking out, and pretty much it was like nothing, and then just this gigantic mound of rock. So Talkeetna, where I'm at right now, is at 300 feet above sea level. The top of that peak is 20,000.
Wow.
So that thing has so much prominence. Like when we were like way down in southeast Alaska, I could see that thing from, I don't even know, 200 or 300 miles away. And I was like, holy shit, am I climbing that? That's a big thing. So we ended up going up. I went with a guide company called RMI Expeditions. They were awesome. We had a team of 10 people, 3 guides, 7 clients. I would have loved to have gone with just some friends, but I didn't know anybody that had enough time or was into it to the same extent. So the thing you do is, to get onto the glacier, is you fly. So you leave Talkeetna and they fly you up to like just around 7,000 vert. And so this is our incoming flight to the glacier. That is Denali, the summit is up there. It's a big bunch of mountains. The Alaska range is crazy. I mean, look at how thick that glacier whole thing is, like a big pancake. Pretty outrageous country. When we were flying through, we had the pilot do like a couple of little loops and stuff because it was just so tremendously beautiful. So this is Mount Foraker, 17,400 feet to the southwest of Denali. So we land on this kind of like spur off the Talkeetna Glacier. We got all our gear together and then started heading out. This is a 14,500 foot peak called Mount Hunter. This face right here is mostly north facing, and it is known as the face of the shadows. It has been attempted, but it has never been successfully climbed. As you can see, there's a lot of hanging glaciers. It's super, super sketchy. But this is also, so like this glacier down here is about 7,000 feet, and that's over 14. So it's really deceiving, but that's 7,000 feet of vertical. That's crazy. That's huge. Alaska range is outrageous. So yeah, looking back, I think that's looking over to Foraker. So as we're making our way up the glacier, we're basically doing little pop-up camps where you basically dig down into the snow to create snow walls to try to protect you from the winds, because there's nothing to protect you on the glacier. And this is the way of life, man. You're moving a lot of material. When we left the Talkeetna Glacier landing spot, I had a 70-pound pack on, and I was pulling a sled of over 55 pounds either. I spent months preparing for this, a lot of getting used to heavy loads. This is down around 9,000 feet. You can see the rope team that's heading up the glacier further. On the way up, because we were leaving in the end of June, the glacier was pretty much well covered with snow, so we could basically just hike straight up the glacier. It was a different story coming back because the crevasses started becoming visible. That's Mount Hunter up there. That's that face of the shadows. This is kind of what it looked like. We all had ropes, pulling gear on sleds. So this is one of the guys on the team, Wyatt. Only the guides were on skis. That was before my downhill skiing time, so I was on snowshoes. We all had the same setup, pulling a sled, and then you have prussiks, which are ascending ropes, basically, that you have attached to your gear, so that you could get out of if you were to go into a crevasse. Typically, you just say goodbye to your gear and like let it loose, which sucks. Because that also means that your climb is done. So it's key that you maintain all of your gear at all times. So this is one of our camps on the way up. There's Robbie, one of the guides, down in our kitchen. That was our hangout spot. It was kind of fun because you create your own hangout space. So it's kind of like a camaraderie thing where everybody grabs a shovel and you're just digging to make, like, let's make a bench over here, and like, let's put a thing to hang out over here, you know, so you can kind of do whatever you want. It's a lot of fun. Well, you got nothing else to do, so you're doing a lot of fun work like that. But yeah, so this is up at the 11,000 foot camp. This is getting higher on the mountain, and this is where shit's getting real serious. The glacier, as you can kind of see, all these glaciers, as you get higher up, you start having, where I mentioned those bergschrunds, you start having these big changes in elevation on the mountains, so the crevasses are huge. And there was a couple that I got a picture coming up, that there were crevasses that were over 60 feet wide. It's like insane. So this is above the 11,000 foot camp. We're heading up to go towards the 14 camp. You have multiple base camps as you go up. The highest camp is at 17,400 feet. You don't want to stay there for any more than 5 days, because at those elevations your body just really has a hard time recovering. Another thing to note, sorry for anybody that's a flat earther, but the earth is an oblate spheroid, right? Okay, so it's kind of smushed, so the poles are up here, and because of inertia and the earth spinning, it's a little bulged at the center. So because of that bulge, the atmosphere is also bulged at the equator. So Denali is at 66 latitude, so it's right up by the Arctic Circle. And because the atmosphere is squished, because the Earth's spinning like this, they actually equate, because the atmosphere is thinner up at the northern hemisphere and the far southern hemisphere, they equate, if you're on the top of Denali, it would be the same as at 20,000 feet as being at 24,000 feet in the Himalayas, because the Himalayas are closer to the equator down at 19. So you don't need supplemental oxygen up on Denali, but some people, they have tanks up there for people that have troubles. But it's like when you're on the summit, it's like being at 24,000 feet in the Himalayas. So I wanted to note that too. It's also cool being up that high. Midsummer, the sun does this, and then dips, and then it goes like that. It's freaking cool. So you're always in daylight. So that's actually when I befriended eye shades. Never used them before to sleep in my life. I wouldn't have been able to sleep an hour if it wasn't for eye shades on this mountain, because it's always sunny. Talked about trying to maintain your gear. So, see this crevasse right back here? That crevasse was completely covered up. You couldn't have seen it. We stopped for a break. One of the people on our crew, the biggest thing about gear management is when you take anything off of you, you always have at least one, preferably two, hands on it to bring it down slowly. So you put everything down and you try to make depressions with your crampons so that you can stick your gear. You do not want to lose your stuff. One of our members on our team was very tired, took her pack off, and basically just dropped it to the ground. The pack rolled away, it went down, it got stuck in the top of this crevasse. This is one of the guides, his name is Jeff. He's a maniac. I'm really good at ropes, but in order to do what he did, it would have taken me 45 minutes. This guy did what I'm about to describe in less than 3 minutes. It was insane. So he got anchored off, he went out towards the glacier, towards the crevasse. At that time, the pack was just chilling right up at the top on the snow bridge. As soon as he touched that pack, the snow bridge broke and the pack free fall down into the crevasse, and it pulled Jeff down into the crevasse, but he was able to pin his body on across the top of the crevasse right here. And then so the other guy came by, Robbie, they built an anchor real quick, and then Jeff just jumped down into the crevasse, went down. The pack was about 40 feet down on a ledge in the crevasse. He went, hooked it up, and they brought it out. Here's the big thing about this. Had we lost that pack, our climb was over. We would have all had to turn around at that point, because when you're on the mountains, you're a team. So our climb would have been done. And poor Gail, the woman that dropped the pack, she was crying and stuff, and it was like, no big deal. We got the pack back, we can keep climbing. But she was like, I almost ended everybody's climb. And it was like, it's okay, it didn't happen. So that's the thing about your management of all your gear, your management of your teammates. And that's the thing about camaraderie when you're in these conditions. Like, I don't care who you are. You can disagree about whatever. You guys are best friends when you're on this mountain because you've got to work together. So this is kind of a good testament to gear management. So this is in the area of these massive crevasses. So this one over here, it's really deceiving, but like this one is like 20 feet wide. Like I'm like above looking down, and this one over here is like 60 to 70 feet across. It doesn't look like that, but if a person went out there, they'd be a little spot. It's huge. The Alaska Range is no joke. So here's kind of looking at the southwest side of Denali. We're on our way up to the 14,000 foot camp. I always like showing this picture because somebody up in the 14,000 foot camp was cooking bacon, and it was wafting down. The smell was wafting down. It was tempting everybody. And that one girl that I mentioned, or woman, Gail, she had been a vegan, or it was a vegetarian for 3 years, and then 11 years as a vegan, and she ate bacon that day. That's the power of bacon, man. And it was the shittiest bacon, because it's the thin, like crappy stuff, But like, oh man, it tasted so good. So this is from down in the 14,000 foot camp. Because of weather conditions, we ended up having to stay in the 14,000 foot camp for 7 days. I read 3 books, and I'm not much of a reader. I read 3 books and spent a lot of time in this cave that somebody had dug out, and I made it bigger. It was really boring. 7 days of waiting for our weather windows. But this is the West Buttress, so this is about 16,800 feet, and we're down at like 14,500 or so. So there are fixed lines, and you can kind of see these kind of weird rough lines. There's a bergstrand right in there, and so it's a challenge to get over that stuff, but there's fixed lines that you use ascenders to get up. So this is in a 14,000 foot camp looking at a foraker. This is what camp looked like. We got really used to this stuff. But yeah, you build these snow walls, and when the winds blast you, some stuff falls over, and then you basically got to repair it. But when the winds would come through, you couldn't see outside of these snow walls. It's just complete whiteout conditions. So you basically just do a lot of chilling, like I said, reading, hunkering down. So in order to move up to the higher camp, we had to shuttle gear. So we basically started at the 14,000 foot camp, hiked up, I'm up on the buttress. We buried gear up high, and then we went back down to the 14,000 foot camp, and then we actually went back down to the 14,000 foot camp and then stayed there for the 6-7 days, and then went back up because of weather. And so this is one of my favorites, but those big giant crevasses are these right here. But the Kelheitna Glacier, we started over here past this cloud. But anyway, so this is up on the buttress. This is one of our 3 rope teams, and you see all these snow probes, basically with little flags on them. This is where everybody buries their gear when you're moving camp and moving gear up. That's there's a whole bunch of these up on the buttress. But super beautiful. Can't get over the views up there, guys. I mean, my God. The Alaska Range is tremendous. So here's a view of the kick step trail going up higher to the 17,000 foot camp. This is us belaying some of our climbers below, coming up on the buttress. This terrain is not that difficult to manage to get over, but as you're hiking up, because you're at almost 17,000 feet, and even higher feeling with the lack of oxygen, movement is really slow, and even brain processing speed is slow, so things can get super dangerous. So you're always trying to be hooked up. This is the 17,000 foot camp, so this is the highest camp before our summit push, and I just wanted to take this picture for the fact of just showing all of our gear. This was our team's ice axes and trekking poles all lined up, getting ready for the climb. So you can see the stripe, that's the line going up. The summit is obscured, but it's back there. So Gail, she's excited as hell because we got a weather window, and we're all jacked, we're all ready to freaking go. It is time to summit this thing. We got a weather window. Sorry to get excited, but it's exciting. You spend a lot of time up there trying to get going, and when things work out, it's amazing. So, unfortunately, the cloud deck that day was around 13,500 to 14,000 foot, so you couldn't see all the terrain below it, but you're just looking at the tops of the clouds. This is me, or one of our last rest stops for snacks before we went up. One thing to note also, when you're going up on stuff like this, you learn a breathing technique called pressure breathing. It basically force air out of your mouth really, really hard, like that. It creates a vacuum in your lungs, so you get the maximum amount of oxygen to fill back in. It's also, it helps people even around mountains around here, you know, but basically why I say that is, as you're going up, once I hit 18,500 feet, I needed to pressure breath with every single step. So it was just one after another. And like, so when you're in the rope team, all you hear are people like struggling to breathe. So it's a lot of pressure breathing. It's a very slow, arduous event. Here's the summit ridge. There's the summit. We're getting close. It was a gorgeous day. I'm thinking it was probably around 5 below, maybe 0 so temperature-wise, and the wind was whipping, so I don't know, wind chill was probably 20, 30 below. But I lived in northern Wisconsin at the time, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me. The other people, like Gail is from Hawaii. She did not like this. This was less than enjoyable. But there's the geodetic survey marker on the summit. Woo! Got that bad boy, 20,000. Well, they've gotten a recalculation of the height. I think they've got it at 20,230 something feet. It's way up there. So this is looking down, so check that. Remember Mount Hunter, 14,500 feet? That's it right there. Like, holy crap. Yeah, because we're 7,000 feet higher, or 6,000 feet higher. And there's Foraker out there at 17.4. Super cool. So the wind started kicking up. We got the hell out of there. The problem now being, we ended up, okay, so here's my face, another selfie. I got it, I'm actually up there. So we ended up going down, and I wish I took a video of this. This picture encapsulates one of the craziest like cloud weather events I've ever experienced in my life. So we got pinned down on the 17,000 foot camp after summit day for another day and a half because the winds were so insane that it wasn't safe to go down. So I ended up, and I wasn't really supposed to do this, but the guides were sleeping a lot, so I went and did whatever I wanted. So I went out on this little perch, and I felt like the Grinch on Mount Trumpet, like looking down at Whoville. So like Whoville was down here, the 14,000 foot camp, and I'm standing on this ridge, and basically this is the west buttress of Denali, and it continues all the way towards Mount Foraker. Well, this whole thing of cloud was moving in one huge mass. I don't know how fast, but really fast. And it was like, because the winds were gusting up to 70 miles an hour, this whole mass of cloud was pouring over this ridge line. It's still to this day one of the craziest things I've seen in the mountains, because it was like a slab of cloud that was probably 12 miles long that was all moving together. It was crazy. So there's the west buttress going down. You can actually see a rope team down there. You see those like 4 little dots. Those are people coming up the buttress. There's Whoville, and I was grinching my grinchy ways looking down at them because I had nothing better to do because we were just chilling up there, and I had already read all the books that we had, so we were just hanging out. So we were waiting, and here's a good view of the fixed lines and those birch runs. There's actually 2 of them that we had to cross. It was just looking kind of at the descent. So fast forward, we got down, and basically we got down to 14,000 foot camp. We talked about staying another night. We're like, the hell with that, let's start moving down. So we just started beating feet and got our way down. This next picture, oh, that's looking back up to Denali right there. Success. Here as we're going down, this is the thing that got really a pain in the ass. Because when we went up on this glacier, it was a straight line. We just shot right up it. On the way back down, there were points where to cross glacier, or to cross crevasses that were only 100 yards apart, we had to walk a quarter mile one way and then go across and a half mile back. And I mean, it was just zigzagging. It was was a lot of walking. But that's because this is now July 7th or 8th, and we started in June, so things started opening up. But to note, we had seen white, blue, black, and gray as our dominant colors that we could see for 3 weeks because we were on a glacier. And, you know, people had orange and stuff, but the dominant colors were just those 4 colors. And then when we flew off the glacier and we got to see this green, I still was just like, my eyes hurt. This was so green, it was like my rods and cones couldn't understand what the hell I was looking at, you know? But super crazy. So that was Denali. It's the only time I've ever been to Alaska, but it was a blast. I was in the state for almost a month, had a great time. So, come back to the US, or to the lower 48. The next year, unfortunately, one of my best buddies, John, that you saw in all the times climbing earlier, one of my best buds, he ended up dying in a kayaking accident. So, love that guy. So, he died in March of 2014 on the Upper Smith River in Northern California. So I had one more high point to do, and it was that year. I was trying to do Katahdin. So I ended up doing that hike in his name. Went to his celebration of life. I got a little baggie of his ashes, and I got to spread him around the country. I put him in 4 different spots, one of which was on the summit of Katahdin. So I saved Katahdin for number 50 so I could do it with my parents, who, you know, they had supported me through all this stuff and all my crazy shit. So they came up from New Jersey and joined me on it, and my girlfriend at the time, Leah. So we went on this hike, and you can see the summit is up here. And, oh no, the summit's right there, sorry. And you go up this side here. Well, it's a 10-mile round-trip hike with over 4,000 feet of climbing. There are rock scrambles, and if you've ever heard the term via ferrata, it's like the iron rungs that they like stick into the rocks. The west slopes of Katahdin is loaded with that, and I told my folks, like, hey guys, you gotta like train for this. Like, this is big boy shit. Like, you gotta get ready for this climb. It ended up being really intense for my parents. So this hike usually takes people like 7 or 8 hours. It ended up taking us almost 13. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm not pretty sure. I saved my mom's life that day. She almost slid off of a rock down like a really serious drop-off. I almost gave her whiplash because I ripped her back via her pack. But it was a lot of this scrambling and going through rocks to get up there. But let me tell you, northern Maine is absolutely gorgeous. I always say, folk, like, out of the 50 states I've been to, the most beautiful state east of the Mississippi, by far, is Maine. Maine is incredible. It's got a ton of the different forested biomes. It's got beautiful coastline. It's just incredible. So on the top of Katahdin, on a clear day, and in this day, there was a guy up there that was pointing out to us, you can see the Atlantic Ocean. It's like 100 miles away, but you can see the Atlantic Ocean from the top. Super, super cool. This is the upper ridge line getting up to the summit. That's the top up there. It's actually, once you get through all that scrambly stuff, it's a really easy hike on the very top. Got to the top, number 50, Yahoo! Cried my eyes out because I left some of John's ashes at the top. I made this cool little poster honoring John for this little somber kind of shout out to him. My parents whipped out, I wish I would have known, because my dad was like, this thing is kind of a pain in the butt. They made this cool like panel for me, and if you look closely, you see a little John Wilburn in a kayak with his the month that he passed. Pretty cool. So that's that. But some more mountains, Katahdin, it's awesome. The Knife Ridge to the east is, like, when we were up at the top, my parents were like, this place is crazy, we're ready to go down. And I was like, man, like, you want to like chill here? I want to like run out over there. Because like people talk about this Knife Ridge being a super cool place to hike, but that was not in the cards that day. It was basically try to get people down safely. But thank you. A lot of talking. Really appreciate your time. And that is it. Do you guys have any questions?
I have one. So did you use GPS the whole time during these years, or how? I mean, there wasn't really good GPS in the
There wasn't, and I'm like, as my my fellow foresters back there know, I'm not super techie.
How'd you do that?
I just hike.
You just run.
I just, yeah.
One thing about Derek is he just runs.
I'm really good with maps, so paying attention to like how far I'd gone and all that kind of stuff was like very dialed into that. I still, when I'm hiking around, like around here, if you guys do hiking in Colorado, CoTrex, I live by that app. It's awesome. It's a free app that tracks you even when you're offline. I've used that more and more now, but really I haven't used GPS hardly at all, which my mom has always given me a hard time. Like, what if you die? How are you going to get your body? I was like, I don't know, that's your problem. That's a really mean way to say it, but yeah, I appreciate the question. But yeah, I kind of, even though I'm in my early 40s, I kind of have like more of like the super old school mindset. I kind of like just cruising, getting in the mountains. Yeah.
Start to finish, when you were on the Denali hike, how long did it take the guides to retrieve that woman's map?
Oh, from start to finish, gosh, as soon as it went, they set up the anchor and went down in the crevasse, and they were out of there in like 3 to 4 minutes. It was unbelievable to watch these guys. They were so efficient. Yeah, because they're banging snow pickets, setting up the stuff. I mean, they like timed themselves. These guys, like, that's their job. They were so, it was so impressive, because like when I mentioned, like, I could have done that, but it would have taken me 45 minutes to an hour, and they were like lightning fast. And that little guy, Jeff, he was actually, for a while, he was actually a sponsored ice climber. So that's like his element. That guy is like a little spider monkey. And so he just shot down in there and came right back out. It was like super quick. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it, and probably never will, because I don't, I go on glaciated peaks, but not that regularly. So, and I usually try to avoid having to come into situations like that. But it was crazy. Yeah, they were, like I'd say, like from when the pack went in with everything done, we were done within 20 minutes. It was like so quick. They were crazy.
So is Everest on the, or Kilimanjaro on the list somewhere, Derek?
I mean, maybe Kilimanjaro, but Everest was like, so one of the guys, that, like, when I pointed out those people in the kitchen, Tim Fabry, he was on the far left. He was doing the 7 summits, and he had planned to do Everest in 2015, and I haven't talked to him since to see if he had done it. But the other kicker about Everest is, and this is old numbers, I want to say from like 4 or 5 years ago, just permits alone, it's like $70,000 to climb Everest. It's crazy. That's, I'm good.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that's why, so if you see people climbing Everest, they usually do like GoFundMes and like fundraiser like events for like a year beforehand to try to get enough money raised, because it's an undertaking. And you also got to be gone and on the mountain for like 2 months. It's crazy. So a little spicier than I want to do. And that's the thing, is like between Canada and Alaska, you can hit really similar terrain to the Himalayas. You know, you're not going to be the same elevation, but there's just as wild stuff. With, you know, you see those Congo lines, way less than that stuff, which I kind of like going, like when I do a lot of bushwhack hikes around here off trail, that's like my main thing. I don't want to see people, no offense, you guys are great, but I like to go off and do it all solo. But yeah, any other questions?
What kind of sleeping bag do you use? Down? What's the best?
Yeah. So I actually, when I went on Denali, I actually rented a, was it 15 or 10 below down, like 800 fill bag. And it's funny that you asked that, because I've had the same down bag that I've used for most all my climbs in the lower 48 that I bought in 2002. And it's basically a rag. And it also was rated for 15 degrees, and it's kind of, you get uncomfortable under 30. So
Yeah.
that thing's a piece of crap. I actually just bought a brand new 800 fill 10-degree bag this summer, and I used it for some of my climbs this summer. Oh my God, I'm an idiot for waiting this long. That bag is awesome.
It's down also?
Yeah, it's a Nemu, and it's down 800 fill, and it only weighs 2 pounds 7 ounces.
Emu.
Or Nemu. The company is NEMU.
But the
It's
the
awesome.
filling is down then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's unbelievable. The technology. I mean, even this. Well, I have the same expedition pack that I've been using for all my big climbs that I bought in 2004. The base weight of that pack is just shy of 10 pounds. And, you know, the technology has changed, but like expedition packs that will carry the same amount are now, they got them down to like 6.5 pounds. So it's saved, you know, pushing 3 pounds, but like for me, I'm like, whatever. Like, expedition packs cost like $500 to $800, so I'm like, I'm good with my old 20-year-old one. But, you know. But maybe in another, well, see, I mentioned about the cheap stuff.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, maybe we can make you a little GoFundMe.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
something
Yeah.
here.
I need a new pack.
Crowdsource.
Yeah, but it's good stuff. Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
I really enjoyed it.